This is the Asset Protection Show. Expert strategies by attorney John Skabelund.
Welcome to the Asset Protection Show, the podcast dedicated to not only protecting your assets from lawsuits and creditors, but also to protect your legacy. After all, what we do isn't just for ourselves, it's to create generational wealth. I'm your host, attorney John Skabelund. Nobody wants to get sued. Today, we'll discuss the most important strategy to avoid being sued. Another common question I often get asked is, what assets can you legally hide? And the short answer is, technically everything. The most important assets to hide, though, are real estate, your residence, your vacation home, your investment properties, your businesses. We don't want you to look rich. If you own LLCs or corporations, you look rich and very enticing to sue. And on that note, that's why hiding real estate is so important. I have clients who own more than 100 rental properties, and nothing would be worse than to look very rich to a plaintiff attorney who can then see all the ownership in all those rental properties. So besides real estate and businesses, we can also hide your vehicle titles. So whether that is in an exotic sports car, in an RV, it might be a UTV, ATVs, it can be anything of value to you. It could be an airplane, it could be a boat. These are all things we want to hide so that you don't look rich. Now, I'll be honest with you. It's very rare that we would ever search for motor vehicle titles. Just know that it's possible. What experienced plaintiff attorneys will always look for are real estate and businesses. And again, it isn't hard because we have access to legal databases that provide us this information on defendants. Now, I often get asked, so John, are all businesses created equal? And the answer is no. I much prefer LLCs. Not only can we establish greater privacy and asset protection through an LLC over a corporation, I can't achieve complete privacy with corporations. The reason being is, although I can hide the owner of a corporation, we call this a stockholder or shareholder, that we can hide. However, we cannot hide who is the officer and director of a corporation. So it will look like you are a C-level executive of a business when we do a search on you. Unfortunately, there's no way around that unless we change your business from a corporation to an LLC. I often get asked, well, is it too late to create privacy? The best time to create privacy is from the very beginning. The reason being is, if you already own real estate and businesses such as LLCs and corporations, what will appear to a plaintiff attorney is that you actually sold your interest in these entities. Timing is critical in regards to privacy. The reason being is, if you've already purchased the real estate or you already own the business, that an experienced asset protection attorney can only make it look like you transferred or sold your interest in that piece of real estate or in that business. However, if we are able to create the entities using the tools that I mentioned earlier, LLCs, irrevocable trusts, limited partnerships from the outset, we can achieve complete privacy. That transfer won't even appear because the entity will purchase the real estate, or the entity itself will be the business. We don't have any historical records of your prior ownership. And that is why it's best to always be working with an experienced asset protection attorney from the very get-go, rather than later on, because the historical record will always be out there. Now, again, that doesn't mean that it's fatal. When a plaintiff attorney runs a record on you, it's only going to pull up what you currently own. It's only a problem if someone goes through the historical records of the business or looks at the prior deed or the transfer deed where the real estate is being moved into the limited liability company. A frequent question I'm often asked is, do I have to live in Wyoming or Delaware in order to be able to create one of these privacy LLCs? And the answer is simply no, of course not. You can create these type of LLCs, which we often use as holding companies, no matter where you live in the country. You may be wondering, can you accomplish this privacy on your own? Sadly, no, you can't. Yes, you could create a Wyoming LLC or Delaware LLC, limited partnerships and irrevocable trust on your own. The problem actually is, one, you may not know how to do it in a proper way. It's very easy to mess up and actually show the filer of that LLC. But that gets me to the bigger problem. It's the annual reports. When you file the annual reports, not only is the organizer, the person who created the LLC limited partnership, disclosed on state public records, but so is the filer of the annual report. And in some states, they actually require a human being to be listed. And so that's why a strategy in those states that do require human disclosure is you create a special manager in the LLC, often the attorney. The attorney gets disclosed rather than the client. In addition to avoiding lawsuits, there's some other big benefits to privacy. First of all, my clients who are celebrities want privacy. Not only are you worried about the paparazzi, but you're worried about some debacle or something getting out there where it discloses what you own. Case in point is I did a podcast on Bill Belichick and the Jordan Hudson issue. Just briefly, Jordan Hudson allegedly was not involved in Bill's business affairs and that she had a minor role. However, investigative journalists discovered that, in fact, she was a manager of many of Bill Belichick's LLCs. Again, this was a fatal flaw in Bill's game plan. Why? Because he could have created those LLCs with privacy where the manager wasn't disclosed, and no one would have known that Jordan Hudson was actually involved in his business affairs. Now, could he have foreseen this years ago when he created these? No, certainly he couldn't. But that's why it's so important that you create privacy at the very beginning so that when it surfaces years later, you have nothing to worry about. Another group of clients that need privacy are professionals. So these are the doctors, the lawyers, the dentists, professional athletes. So a client of mine, for example, is a psychiatrist, and she contacted me because she was concerned about her patients finding out where she lived. Now, I know we've been talking about lawsuits and how we avoid them, but this is actually even more important. This is a matter of life and death. This client was concerned that a disturbed patient would be able to track her down, find out where she lived, and harm her and her family. So that's, again, an issue of privacy being paramount to professionals. The last group of clients who appreciate privacy are high net worth individuals. And who are they hiding their assets from? Actually, their family. Many high net worth individuals don't want their family to know that they're rich. And so by utilizing privacy, they are able to keep family and friends from finding out how wealthy they are. You may be wondering, is this even legal to be able to hide your ownership in your assets? The answer is absolutely. Hiding your ownership in your assets is completely legal and ethical because the law encourages and enables you to be able to do it. After all, what does America want its citizens to do? To accumulate wealth. When you accumulate wealth and become rich, you invest. And that investment then in turn creates jobs. So these rules and laws that allow privacy is actually created in your benefit. Why? To incentivize you to create more wealth. As my good friend Tom Wheelwright likes to say, you are allowed to use the tax code to your advantage. The government wants you to use the incentives that it provides in the tax code. By doing so, you are playing their game. And when you play their game, you're actually lowering your income tax. So some people call it loopholes. You're just playing the game that the IRS wants you to play. Again, using my analogy earlier, the government wants you to invest in real estate. Why? Because it provides housing for others. So by investing in real estate, as an example, the IRS gives you a tax break. So you're playing the game that the IRS wants you to play. Similarly, there's privacy laws in place because the government wants you to be able to legally hide and protect your assets from disclosure. Some clients get excited thinking that this is a great way that they can avoid paying their income taxes. I stop them right there. I will not work with any client that is interested in doing that. That is where this no longer is ethical and legal. This is all about asset protection and avoiding lawsuits and creating privacy. This is not a tax shelter. This is not an income tax strategy to avoid paying your taxes. We're all about doing the right thing because it's legal and it's ethical. As I tell my clients all the time, just because you have an asset protection plan, we are all about good, clean living. I hope you were able to learn something today about how to create privacy, why it's important to do so, and when you need to do it. In conclusion, hopefully you've learned that privacy isn't just for the rich and celebrities. It's for everybody. Everyone can create privacy, whether you're just starting out or whether you have a $250 million estate. I want to reemphasize that privacy is the most critical component to asset protection. Why? Because it encourages settlement outside of court and a lawsuit not even being filed. If you can accomplish that and settle for insurance and have your plaintiff go away, then mission accomplished. But I want to emphasize it's still important that you do have your asset protection plan in place so that if a plaintiff does sue, we're still making it difficult through layers for someone to be able to reach your assets. This is how we're actually protecting them. Although creating privacy is not easy to do because you do need to be working with an experienced asset protection attorney, it can be accomplished. Even if you already own assets, we can hide those today. And more importantly, when you acquire new assets, it is critical that you do it in a way where you're hiding complete privacy of ownership. Thank you for joining me today as we discuss why privacy is important to asset protection.
You've been listening to the Asset Protection Show, expert strategies by attorney John Skabelund. For more information, go to assetprotectionshow.com.
This content is legal information only and not legal advice. Viewing this content does not create an attorney-client relationship. Mr. Skabelund is admitted to practice law in Arizona, and he may be reached at ultimateassetprotection.com.